The City Council meeting of March 18th, 2024 is called to order at 6:30. We will begin with a moment for prayer or reflection. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. Adoption of previous council meeting minutes. We have regular council meeting minutes of March 4th, 2024. Any additions? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as presented. Any councillor announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the, sorry, did I miss adoption of the agenda? You did. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or concerns? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as presented. Consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I had a question regarding the Public Services Parks and Rec update. Did you want me to ask it now?
Yes, we will pull that from the consent agenda. How about we'll get a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda, and then we'll deal with item, is that item 8 oh no, 8.4 or
8.4 Annual State of Parks and Recreation Report.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
So the motion is to adopt the consent agenda items as presented, except the item 8.4, which has been pulled for discussion. We will vote on the motion. That is unanimous. Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I just had a question about the Annual State of Parks and Recreation Report. Just a couple of questions actually on, and if they can't be answered now, that's completely fine. I'm happy to have the information later. On page 10 of the report, I'm trying to see what would be page 31 of the agenda. It talks about creating a comprehensive fees and charges framework that considers several factors beyond traditional cost recovery rates. And I just wondered if that is around individual users or if that includes group use, because I have had inquiries from the community in the past on fee costs associated with user groups in city facilities.
Managing Director Stout, do you have the answer to that question?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, it includes both.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, moving on to new business. The first, committee business. The first item is 10.1, Procurement Bylaw 4811, replacement of Bylaw 3230. And the sponsor is Corporate Services. Would you like to introduce this item, Managing Director Egert?
Good evening, Council and
Madam Mayor. I'm just getting my bearings here. Okay, thank you. This particular item relates to signing of purchase-related contracts. Currently, the MGA defines the signing to be done by the elected official, which is the mayor, as well as the city clerk. The MGA also allows delegation of that authority through a bylaw, which we're proposing here. That would be delegated to city manager, and city manager then it will further delegate that to a representative in our procurement department. We have done some scanning of other municipalities, and it is actually quite common to have some sort of delegation out to the administration to do these kinds of approvals. I will say, as part of the background of how we got here, we are looking at ways to improve our process. And the process is sort of beginning to end in terms of turnaround, of awarding, and as well as signing a purchase order or signing a contract that will then go out to the vendor. So as part of this continuous improvement efforts, we have been doing engagement sessions that would be both internally and externally. And one thing that did come up during those engagement sessions was just the pain point of the turnaround time to have that contract actually signed and delivered back to the vendor. The bylaw that is currently in force hasn't been updated in 25 years, so it is it does represent a condition that was back 25 years ago. And so since then, our procurement system, procurement structure has significantly changed, and our desire is to have this new bylaw reflect today's environment.
Kate, I'll entertain a motion for first reading.
I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4811, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat governing the procurement by the city of goods, services, or other things of value.
And I'll second that.
Being first reading, we will vote on the motion. It's a little echoey in here tonight. And that's unanimous.
This time I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 4811.
I'll second.
Any debate or discussion? Councillor Knodel.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. This will be a quick comment. I just want to state that during our committee meeting, we had a bit of dialogue, and it was nice to hear that we'll be up to speed with other communities in regards to this work and to further increase turnaround time in regards to vendors. We heard from staff that it could possibly reduce turnaround time from up to 14 days to around 48 to 72 hours. And maybe as long as I get the head nods that I'm getting that number right. So that's a really strong step in the right direction.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Yeah, through the chair, just to echo those comments, again, as has been indicated by the managing director, it hasn't been updated for some time. It doesn't mean it wasn't working for us, but I think certainly in today's environment and when it comes to spending limits and other, as indicated here, pain points when it comes to procurement processes, we certainly, like other communities, seek to create improvement and streamline the process, not the least of which often involves changes to the authorized personnel capacity, which reflects, again, today's environment, and certainly it still has all the I guess, scaffold behind it around ensuring that we're following all the processes up to that point, and we're getting the best bang for a dollar, which is the tax dollar at all times. So these improvements, although seem insignificant to some extent, will yield and should yield improvement, noticeable improvement from within the organization and how we're seen from outside. So I'm pleased to support it.
Thank you. Since we're removing one of the sort of natural or the checks and balances identified in the MGA, is there going to be additional reporting to council in terms of contracts and amounts that are assigned through procurement?
Through the chair, we certainly would respond to any of council's requests. Currently, we do have an annual report that comes to committee and then forms part of the committee meeting minutes that relate to an annual report of procurement in various areas, and we can certainly include an aspect of volume and type of procurements that we did related to this delegation.
Okay, so I feel like I would be more comfortable with this. So we also have our whistleblower policy that's supposed to be coming to council at some point. I think I would feel more comfortable with a delegation of this sort if we had outlined kind of a standard, I believe some other municipalities do it, where it's, you can see what the amount and the business, not necessarily to the public, but just in terms of a council reporting to closed, a report of that nature. And also once we have the updated whistleblower program in place, which I believe would allow for greater ease with which people could report not that there will be, but anytime you remove a check and balance, it's good to make sure you're really clear on how that governance piece is going to stay part of the system. City Manager Mitchell?
Through the chair, we did a jurisdictional scan. It's very common to have this delegated. And just for council's awareness too, we talk about this in our strategic plan about making our policies and procedures more able to adapt. The whistleblower policy is coming to admin committee on Wednesday, and then will come to council following that. So this is a pretty common practice, and I can turn it over to Managing Director Egert because he did a jurisdictional scan, and this is very common. Go ahead.
Thank you, City Manager, and through the chair. We did look at some mid-sized cities as well as Edmonton and Calgary, and so I can report that City of Calgary, City of Edmonton, City of Lethbridge, City of Grand Prairie, City of Red Deer all delegate this to a bit of a combination. Some is to the supply chain function, some is to the city manager and city clerk, some is to the chief financial officer and or city manager, and some would be to city manager. So it is different, but it is delegated to administration.
Regardless of whether it's common or uncommon, my comfort level would be increased if we had a set reporting structure for these specific contracts. Councillor Knodel?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to Managing Director Egert, there's two categories that I would assume that we would see a degree of information through. Our auditing process, would that not fall underneath the auditing process for one? And then secondly, we also have one financial reporting awards. I'm just wondering if that gives you confidence that this is something that we could take care of through those two avenues.
So through the chair, thank you very much, Councillor Knodel. Those are all components of our internal control system, I would say. They wouldn't necessarily detect something in isolation, but they certainly would add to the comfort that I would have in terms of process and and correct approval levels. So one of the things that Audit Committee is charged with is ensuring that we have a strong system of internal controls within the city. Internal controls ensures that you have, for example, 2 people signing a check, 2 employees signing a check. Those basic type of internal control systems, we are always looking at and ensuring that we have those in place. As part of the annual audit, which will be coming forward here to Audit Committee in April, we include an option of having Myers Norris Penny, for example, look at a particular process, and that's an option as well that we could have them look at just to see how it's working after a period of time. So if I could just maybe respond back to the mayor's request. So the annual report that we do produce for the procurement department and the procurement activities would be a good place to actually have that type of reporting included.
Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, and through the chair. I echo Councillor Knodl's words. I also just wanted to recognize Managing Director Egert and your team for putting this together, and it looks great. I have full trust in your team and the work you do, so I appreciate this. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. So I'm going to say maybe summer 2022, I was deputy mayor, and I needed to come and sign a contract that was within the policy that we had, something where it required the mayor's signature, so I came in to sign it. I reviewed it, made sure I understood what I was signing, but the details of the contract and what the RFP was and procurement would not be known to me as someone on council. And I did not report back to the rest of council what I had signed, and Mayor Clark has not reported to any of us any of the things that she signed. So in terms of checks and balances, I'm not sure it's that effective the way it is right now. I am curious about what you think the increased checks, like, so we're going to reduce the time, which is great, but what would the checks and balances be if we replace a member of council with somebody, with a delegate, city manager or a delegate?
Okay, through the chair, thank you for those comments, Councillor Robbins. As part of any procurement contract that does proceed for signature currently to the mayor and to city clerk, there is levels of review that occur prior to the mayor and the city clerk receiving the contract. That would include the business that initiates the contract. That would include our legal department that reviews the contract. That would include a managing director sign-off, and that would include city manager sign-off. So that level of review would still take place. I can assure council this isn't a change in the detailed work that we do in getting this contract ready for signature. The only difference is who puts pen to paper, or in this case could be electronic signature as well, that it's delegated to a member of the administration as opposed to mayor and city clerk.
Thank you very much.
City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, through the chair. One follow-up to that too, Councillor Robbins, is right now we are hearing from a lot of our contractors that things are getting hung up and there is a lot of frustration. So this will keep the checks and balances in place, but it will also alleviate that pinch point that Managing Director Egert said as well.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. I just had a question about liability for signatures. So if you designate the signatory to be someone else, I know that in certain areas, there's like a liability risk or the burden is put on to a specific role. If it's designated to someone else, does that liability remain with the city manager or does it get moved on to the designate?
Through the chair, yes, it does. So if somebody's acting in my role when I'm away, for example, last week, Managing Director Stouth, he also has all the responsibilities with that, and we do take it very seriously.
All right, seeing no further questions, I do want to be clear, I agree with things being streamlined as much as possible, and I would like to have seen the contracts be reported to a greater degree now. Like, I think council should have all of those agreements, which I feel probably would be an administrative role rather than a mayor role. And I want to see the whistleblower policy. So for those reasons only, and the better reporting, fleshing that out, what actually that means. So I'm not going to be voting in favor of it, but it's just for those specific reasons. There's kind of, to me, a degree of uncertainty still at this point. So we will vote on the bylaw. Yep, second reading. Second reading is passed.
At this time, I move that council unanimously consent to having third reading of bylaw 4811 at this meeting.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on bylaw, third reading of the bylaw. Unanimous consent. Councillor Hirsch, how do you vote? That's unanimous.
At this time, I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw 4811, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat governing the procurement by the city of goods, services, or other things of value.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Councillor Hirsch?
I just listened to your comments at second reading regards to just some uncertainty, and I actually want to be fairly adamant in my position that I have no uncertainty in regards to the proposed change. I think as indicated and explained, we do have admin activities, which again, this is driving. I'm a bit concerned in terms of what level of due diligence we want, if it's procurement of X amount of dollars or what to what level. I'm comforted by the fact that, you know, as chair of audit, we do see substantive external audit work that gets done, who actually does all the checks and balances. We walked through the idea of dual sign-off to ensure no one individual has the ability to sign off. Unfortunately, there's bad actors everywhere. So that's not even a criticism of the City of Medicine Hat. The reality is, because there's bad actors in our society, we've made it a dual sign-off. So, and quite frankly, as an individual that has the day job that watches for this sort of stuff, I'm very comfortable with it. The one thing that I'm understanding in terms of the governance is the fact that this council drives the policy from which, again, the guardrails to ensure that staff and administration follow the policy. So again, I think we feel like there's a level of comfort there. I'm worried that reputationally, if there's some uncertainty, quite frankly, I'm concerned because then that means that there's not much trust there. And I'm here to say that there is a high level of trust. So I appreciate from the position you're taking, but I think I just wanted to clear the air to make sure people understand that we are very comfortable with the staff that we have. And in fact, if there is any issues that are offside, it gets dealt with and actually fully disclosed when public, and during the audit meeting, we talk about that as well. So, thank you.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you, and through the chair, just a further comment. I obviously support this. And I think, you know, our audit committee, just having experienced it, is really the kind of the check and the balance point for that. And I know that it's a thorough committee, and that we get a look into all the details. So I'm very comfortable with that. It would be interesting you know, a year from now to get a kind of a report of how we have actually reduced some red tape and some time. And again, I'm not making any direction or requesting any from our city manager, but I think it would be a great success story to come back and say, hey, you know, we reduced, you know, wait times by our contracting community by X. So just a thought.
City Manager Mitchell?
Through the chair and to Councillor Hirsch and Councillor McGrogan's comments, our policies are being reviewed with the executive and the admin committee because we do need to look at them all the time, and that is how council has oversight responsibility. So those policies, we're slowly working our way through them, but there are a few of them that need to be updated, rescinded, or revamped. So we are working on those as we speak.
Councillor Hyder?
Thank you, through the chair. I would just like to echo Councillor Hirsch's comments, and I think we're pretty fortunate with the organization we have and the size of financial things that we deal with. I always have, and I will continue to have trust in our team, and we're fortunate again to have you with the organization.
We'll vote on third reading of bylaw 4811. That's unanimous, and bylaw 4811 is passed. Next item is social media policy 0147. Managing Director, is this also you? Egert, is this also you? Thank you.
From internal control to social media. So the introduction on this one is we currently do have a social media policy. That policy was approved by council in 2011, so some time ago. Since then, of course, social media has expanded, both in the number of users and also the city's use of social media. We thought it would be very prudent to update that policy to include strengthening the controls and understanding of how social media should be used from a city account perspective and the users. And I go through some examples here of things that are addressed in this policy. So how we set up city accounts with social media to ensure that they're securely set up, the accounts are securely set up, that we have consistent account administration across the numerous accounts that we have across the city, to be clear on the ownership and accountability for all City of Medicine Hat social media accounts. This one is important, the defined expectations for employees who administer these accounts. And the last one would be additional guidelines that relate to employees' personal social media use as well. So we feel that this is a well-needed update to the policy, and I think it'll serve the city well.
We have several unions in Medicine Hat, that have bargaining units with the City of Medicine Hat. Were they consulted on this? Is that something that the personal use especially, is that something that they've been consulted on?
So through the chair, that exact question was posed at Administrative Committee. The question posed at Administrative Committee was in terms of how are we able to restrict employees' use of social media, and the answer is no. There are some good practices and some expectations of all employees, whether they're unionized or non-unionized, in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So there's in no means a restriction on communication with personal social media accounts, but rather a general guideline in terms of appropriate use of social media.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I had a question regarding employees, the definition of employees. So the City of Medicine Hat frequently employs contractors, including offering programming in some of our facilities, and I wonder if they would fall under this as well.
Through the
We
chair.
we haven't made a motion.
Yeah, we haven't
I
made a
apol-
motion. I was
I
waiting
apologize.
for the moment to
Go
do so.
ahead.
So I will do so. I move that council approves the updates to social media policy 0147 as presented.
I'll second that motion.
It's not a bylaw, it's just a policy, so
Right,
it's
my
not first reading.
apologies. I knew it wasn't a bylaw, and that's, sorry, I was confused by that. Yes, my question is around whether contractors that are contracted to offer programming within our facilities or for the city are considered under that definition of employees.
So there is a definition that's included in the policy, if that's what you're referencing, Councilor Van Dyke. Any permanent, temporary, full-time, part-time, or casual employee of the city payroll includes volunteers utilized, and for greater certainty also includes all city employees under any union or association, as well as city employees who are out of the scope of the union. So it is silent on the contractors, but if it's a contract employee, and I'll use that term, they would be included. If it's vendor contractors, they would not be included.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So if, I'm not referring necessarily, I understand how when we contract services, say for like road work, and it's a separate company doing, I mean, if we are contracting individuals or companies to offer programming within our facilities, say at Big Marble Go, where we contract fitness instructors or that kind of a thing, would we have the same expectations for them? I know they're not listed in here, but are we allowed to require them to adhere to this as well?
So that's a great question through the chair, and I do see Colleen up there, and I would ask her if she could come and clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, that wasn't specifically contemplated, and we can certainly take that away. My off-the-cuff answer would be, through the service agreements that we would have with those vendors, I would suspect there are already provisions written into those contracts around release of city information, confidentiality provisions, all of those types of things that would likely safeguard against any challenges. But that is something we can certainly take away if there's a desire to do so. I would suspect that it may be an overreach, but we could revisit some of those agreements to determine if any risk mitigation is already appropriately covered there.
So through the chair, what would your recommendation be to approve this and then assess that in the next amendment, or I guess?
City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you, through the chair. As they're not employees, they wouldn't be bound by our policies, and we would do, once every time a policy comes in that affects employees, we do extensive training and the employees sign off on those. So just the managing of that piece would be very extensive. So my suggestion would be to approve it the way it is, leave it with administration, and as Director Graham has stated, it will make sure that it's covered in the agreements for those employees or those contract employees.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hyder?
Through the chair, I just was going to actually talk to Director Graham, ask her. Not talk, but since this term, the social media presence and the positivity and the creativity from you and your team has been phenomenal. It's very appreciative from someone who only uses social media for the have-tos. But it's really great, and I think you're doing a good job, and I appreciate all you do, Colleen and your team.
Seeing no further comments or questions, we'll vote on the policy, social media policy. That's unanimous. My understanding is that someone would like to make a motion to go back into closed.
I'll make a motion to go back into closed.
I'll second.
Can I also get a motion to take a 5-minute recess?
I'll make a,
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
I'll second that motion.
All right, the open portion of the meeting is adjourned at 7:05 PM with close to resume at 7:10 PM.